Good morning. I hope everybody is having a great day today. I'm actually having a pretty good morning. I had a great day at work yesterday. I got to ride the motorcycle yesterday. I was not supposed to be there yesterday, but as heavy as the head that wears the crown, so I had to go in and I was happy to do it. And I'm glad that I did because I had a customer that I hadn't seen in a while, and my boss was there yesterday, and the customer came in and just started raving about how good I was doing and how amazing I am. And I'm not one to blush, but I don't tend to take compliments very well, so it made me feel really good. Anyway, all about my day. It's not why we're doing the video today. This is going to be yet another continuation. When last we left our discussion, we were talking about return on investment on our taxes. And the last time I had a very brief discussion about what a national healthcare system could possibly do, how it could potentially save not just every single one of us some money, but it could also save employers some money because they wouldn't have to worry about paying additional funds for the healthcare that they are paying at least a portion of for their employees. It would also help small businesses because they wouldn't have to carry health insurance for their employees, and it would help create more small businesses because those of us who would love to start our own business but stay with our employers because we need that health care that's too expensive to get a la carte, we just stay. So, because we can get better health care, less expensive that way, because there's a bunch of people paying into the same plan. And that was something I don't think I mentioned in the last video, and I just kind of want to touch on briefly, is part of the reason that we can get good deals on healthcare is because we all of the employees plus the employer themselves are pooling their resources, putting their money into these plans. And ultimately, that's what our tax dollars would be doing, but we'd be having a huge amount of savings. There would also be an expense of getting the program up and running and creating the infrastructure for it. But ultimately, once it was up and running, it would have created Lord only knows how many jobs, and these would be, American people that we're putting to work. Now, I'm going to kind of piggyback on that, and there's a reason why I bring back up the healthcare thing. I need to piggyback on that because today's discussion is going to be about education and how we really do need to federally fund education through college. And the biggest reason why is American jobs. I can't stress that enough. I had somebody, and it's been a while ago, I'm not going to even hint on who. It is somebody that I know decently well, and they made the comment that I don't have any kids in school, so why should I have my tax dollars going to education? That's a fair enough point. I get where they're coming from. But in the same breath, I say in the same breath, I'm using that figuratively here. This person would also complain if, heaven forbid, they had to go to the hospital or they had to see a doctor that didn't look like them, had an accent, especially a really strong accent that may be more difficult to understand, or had a nurse who is difficult to understand because of their accent, because they would refer to them as a foreigner. Why do all these foreigners, why are they working in our hospitals? And short answer is because we're not educating our own people to take those positions. We are expecting a certain tax bracket of individual to get the education needed for those jobs. And now very recently, our current administration has stripped the professional label from nurses. I respect our nurses. I do think that there's a bit of hero worship there that I'm not a fan of with nurses, and I know there's not nurses that are like that, but I do think well, I'm a nurse, praise me for what I do. There are definitely those kind of nurses out there, and those are usually the ones who are sitting at the nurse's station in the hospital painting their toenails. Yes, I have seen that personally, and while I was a patient in said hospital and had been waiting in the emergency room for hours and hours and hours for them to do that. Anywho, I digress. You're gonna have that in a lot of jobs, especially jobs that there are in you're working long hours, or you're expected to have a certain level of knowledge or skill, or like police officers, ostensibly you're putting your lives on the line, and which that's a whole nother discussion. I think we need to educate our police force better. I think they need to come in with at least a bachelor's degree for a beat cop in sociology, psychology, minor in criminal justice. Like, you need to be able to work with people first. Anyway, I am digressing a little bit, but crux of the matter is we need to educate our populace. We need to educate our citizens, because if we don't, there's not going to be jobs for people. It is quickly approaching the day and age where flesh and blood workers are going to be far less needed than they are now. And the workers that are needed are going to be skilled in maintaining the programs and systems and equipment that companies need. We're already starting to see that. Who hasn't walked into insert big box retail store here or grocery store that doesn't have a self-checkout? Or when you're going to a fast food restaurant, calling you out, McDonald's, that has substituted the cashiers, Taco Bell too for that matter, substituted the cashiers for touchscreens. We've all seen it. And every time you use one of those, you are saying, I am okay with Americans not working here. Same thing with ordering online, but that's another discussion that I actually had on my TikTok channel. So on my TikTok page, I'm a Gen Xer. I don't know what they're called. Anywho, we need an educated populace. If you want to have doctors, nurses, even the trades, plumbers, electricians, construction workers, police officers, whatever it is, you want to have attorneys, you want to have these skilled professionals, you need to educate them. And I'd even be okay with, let's go ahead and maybe limit the education of the paid education to certain things. Let it be STEM. Let it be, teaching. Let it be something that will benefit the American public as much as possible. And having access to this education is hugely beneficial. One, it keeps jobs here, because we're seeing that we're having to import individuals in here to fill the jobs that we need. We don't have nearly enough nurses. We don't have nearly enough doctors. We don't have nearly enough people just in medicine across the board. And hospitals and all of that are having to run on shoestring budgets, not just because they are all profit driven, but because that's the only way they can get the qualified individuals in there. These people who are coming from other places across the world where the countries that they come from provide some serious educational assistance or education for their citizens, period. Like, no cost to them. Because they're provided for. They're coming here after they get their education because, one, they can get paid more by the country that they're from, and two, they're undercutting American citizens, and three, American citizens aren't educated. We can't afford to be educated anymore. We have all been priced out of traditional education. And if you're looking to go to, further education, if you're looking to go to med school, you better hope you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Otherwise, you're going to be just racked with loans. And since people were going to college when I was a college age individual, and the kids that are going to college now, the costs have just gone through the roof. Not even just for like the tuition, but the books. Oh my goodness. For those of you who haven't looked into college books for college courses, look into them. It's a whole scam as far as I'm concerned. You have these publishing companies that are trying to work around even the used book system, because they're requiring software to be used with their books, and they're charging like hundreds of dollars for bachelor level courses, hundreds of dollars for a single semester textbook, and the required software that you need, that you have to purchase brand new in order to get the code that you need to make the software work. God bless the people that honestly may go ahead and rip me for this, but for the people who can't afford those, God bless the people who are out there hacking that software or creating dupe software that doesn't require those keys, so that way it makes these college courses more affordable. Because, man, these publishers are raking students over the coals. And I would even argue they're kind of ripping off the banks, because these kids are having to get these loans, and it's awful. Anywho, you want to have a much better society. Oh, that's not good. Just so you know what I'm looking at. I grew up, and if this is an old wives' tale, by all means, comment. And this is a digression, I know. But, on my typical commute to work, and there is just this almost perfectly straight line of gray clouds in the sky, and beyond that everything is all swirly and twisty. I don't feel the wind kicking up, but I was always told that that's not a good sign. That's a warning sign of tornado weather. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. If this is just an old wives' tale, somebody correct me, because I would love to not be paranoid about that. But like, that's something I remember being told as a kid, and it's stuck with me. Back to the topic of conversation. So I'm sure a lot of us have heard the phrase, "a rising tide lifts all ships." And that's true. If you have a far more educated public, and you can have people that can have access to education, why shouldn't we? I had somebody make the argument to me at one point in time that, I don't understand why I have to have a high school education just to get just an entry-level job. A few reasons. There's some things that you learn in high school that you need. If you dropped out your freshman year, just the socialization alone is something that you missed out on. And you can tell. You can absolutely tell that socialization, even on into adulthood. I'm 50 years old, and I can tell by after talking to somebody, a lot of the times, did you have that socialization, or were you an early dropout? Harder to tell if you dropped out later on. Much harder to tell that. Anyway, it's important also to show that you can follow through on something. I had I forget what exactly the math class was, but I had a math teacher in college say to me that you may not like this course, but you need to get through it. Get through this to get to your next goal. And that's stuck with me. That's absolutely stuck with me. And I have talked to employees about that. I have talked to family and friends about that, and anybody who's like, this is such a slog and I need to do, XYZ, and I'm thinking about, maybe throwing in the towel or whatever. That's absolutely a choice. You could absolutely do that. But think about where you want to be, and if you do that, is that going to keep you from getting where you need to be? And this particular individual that I was having this conversation with about, I don't understand why we need a high school education to have, basic jobs. Because a lot of employers they promote from within. Now, are there some that are absolutely like, yeah, no, whatever, I just need, somebody with a pulse to do this job? Sure. And lots of times they'll hire you regardless. But most people want somebody who has at least basic skills, basic understanding, basic socialization skills, basic educational skills, basic communication skills. That's something that we lack a lot of, and I see it when, as a manager where I work, in hiring, I see so many resumes where there are typos, and I say typos because I don't know another way to say it. They're absolutely incorrect, and if it was a typo, it'd just be a one-off here or there. No. Like, one of the things I see quite often is instead of the word and, A-N-D, I see them use A-N. I have even seen just the letter N in reference to that. Like, in a job description, they'll say something to the effect of, well, I was a waitress and I took orders, and A-N, I bust a table, or and I would seat people, bring their food. And they would put the letter N. N, I would do this. N, I would do that. And oh my goodness, like, no, I'm just hiring for a part-time sales clerk, but I need to know that you can communicate with my customers. I need to know that you have basic communication skills down, that you can form full sentences. And that's not given. That's not given that at all. And it's lack of education. You need these basic skills. You need to have completed high school. And in this case, these people absolutely have. That's all the education in most cases that these people have. But it's so bad. It's so bad. And part of that is the American education system. We teach to the test, because of, I guess, No Child Left Behind or what have you. And while the idea behind that, I think, was genuinely a good one, I think it's caused more problems than it's solved, and we really do need to invest in our education system. We need to invest in our teachers. We need to make sure that we're rewarding teachers that have good performance, where their students are achieving, especially in areas where education may not be as, what's the word I'm looking for, may not be seen as important as going and getting a job. And it doesn't work quite the same now as it did when, I was in high school and graduating high school. You can't find the jobs, or where my parents, could my parents and my grandparents, my parents were boomers, my grandparents were the greatest generation, where they could graduate high school and get a job in a factory, or they could, get a job straight out of high school doing whatever, and that was enough. And a lot of times back then, they didn't even need the high school education. They could just go straight into work for a factory once they hit a certain age, and they were fine. You need that now. Like, we are in such a technologically advanced society now. You need that. And in order for America to truly be American first, if you want to be America first, let's do that. Let's put Americans ahead, and let's become the technological light of the world that we know we can be, but we can't without that education. And if you really want to invest in this country, and you really want to invest your money in the U.S. citizen, then education needs to be your priority. We need to make sure that every citizen has the opportunity to be well educated. And that's not the case right now. And do I think that it's something that is going to be right for everybody? No, that's never going to be the case. But I do think we need to, I do believe our education system needs an overhaul, 100%. I agree with that. I don't think we need to get rid of the Department of Education to do that. I do think that we need to start with college education to at least the bachelor's degree is funded fully by taxpayer dollars in order to advance our country, not just on the world stage, but advance our country as far as where we need to be as individuals. And being able to keep up with technology and create new technology. There was a point in time where every other country in the world looked at this country as the innovator. And that was back when it was way more affordable to go to college. Companies were also paying way more in taxes, and that's going to be another video on what I think, how we need to revisit the tax system as a whole. And does it involve taxing corporations more? Absolutely. But they will have the opportunity to get tax breaks, and we'll go into that further on another video. But again, think about all of the things that we come in contact with on a regular basis, and think about who we have conversations with in our lives, and those individuals who are professionals and need education to get where they are, need extended education to get where they are, and be it, like I said, be it the trades, be it more professional things like doctors, and yes, nurses, even though they're not technically listed as professional anymore, which I'm calling BS on. Anywho, I digress on that too. But I really do think that it is important that we fund the American citizen, and that's what it is, and that's where our taxes, and we're going to start seeing that return on our investment. If you know that your tax dollars are building up this country and putting more Americans in good paying jobs, isn't that worth it? Isn't that worth your tax dollars? Because now you really want to pay less in taxes. Okay, now you have more people who are earning better wages that are now putting more money into the same tax system that you are. And ostensibly, if you have more people funding these programs because they have these great jobs, then yeah, like let's make that happen. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. The country as a whole is getting a return on their investment because now you have more profitable citizens putting more into the system. Ostensibly, that could then drop taxes for everybody across the board. It would take time to get there, and you'd be probably paying a little bit more upfront. But ultimately, we could have those rolled back some. So just some food for thought again. More discussion is needed. And I know that all of these thoughts are coming from a layperson perspective. I'm not a politician. I'm not an economy expert. I do follow Robert Reich, though. I think he's a genius and was a economist under several different administrations for both parties. And if you haven't followed him yet, by all means do. He's wonderful. And it's something that we need to talk about, and we need to discuss, and we need to start ironing out these differences, and I'm sure we can find common ground. I think we could all first and foremost agree that we need to invest in the American citizen more. And I don't think that's anything that any of us would disagree with. We need to invest in the country as a whole. And you can't invest in the country as a whole without investing in the American citizen. So, like I said, and like I've said before, subscribe so you know when the next video is going to hit. Hit the little bell. It'll notify you. And yeah, drop a comment below. Even if it's just something like a hey, drop a little $sign in the comments below. Drop a little, a little heart, something. I like the green hearts because if none of you know this, I'm a huge Muppet fan, and Kermit's one of my favorite characters of all time. So little green hearts are awesome. But yeah, so if you've watched to this point and you throw a green heart down there, I know you've watched the whole entire video, and I appreciate you all. I mentioned in the last video I posted that I got 4 whole likes on the previous video. So those really do make my day. So yeah, subscribe, drop a comment, give me some feedback, give me some interaction, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And we'll talk again next time.